Beatrice Holling was still standing beneath crossed silver banners when Sword Chancellor Ilyan Crest announced that her command chair had been transferred to him. The younger man waited beside the Wolf King's throne in black armor, one hand resting on the ceremonial command sword Beatrice had taught him never to touch without cause. He already controlled royal sword policy. If the oath held, he would also command Blackmoon Armory. Lady Holling has served Varenhold beyond expectation, Ilyan said. No kingdom should demand that an injured woman keep performing the strength she gave it in her youth. Beatrice kept her left shoulder still beneath her dark training coat. The ceremonial strike that damaged it 3 winters ago left her able to teach, inspect, and fight only in measured bursts. The court called that incapacity. Wolf King Aldous Varen sat below the crescent racks of the oath blades. He had knowingly signed her retirement and approved Ilyan as acting commander. Your pension carries full royal honor, Aldous said. Your rooms remain yours. Your name will stay above the Eastern School. My name above a school I may no longer enter. His jaw shifted once. You have nothing left to prove. That is not the same as having nothing left to give. The school needs visible certainty, Ilyan said. Students must see command without hesitation. My students learned that hesitation can keep a controlled strike from becoming a burial. They learned to distrust risk. They learned not to confuse spectacle with courage. Several officers she had trained looked down. Aldous descended with the sealed parchment. At 17, he had hated her corrections. Years later, he thanked her for teaching him when not to finish a strike. Now he gave her the decree removing her from active instruction, weapons inspection, independent review of training and tournament deaths, and armory access. I will not let the court turn your injury into entertainment, he said quietly. Beatrice accepted it. You already let them turn it into evidence. He offered no excuse. She unfolded the annex beneath the decree. Who controls weapons inspection after sunset? The Sword Chancellor's office, Ilyan said. And independent death review? The same office during transition. For 20 years, death review had remained separate, so the school training young swordsman could not also judge whether its instruction, tournaments, or royal-issued blades had killed them lawfully. That authority was supposed to remain divided, Aldous said. The council passed a continuity annex this morning, Ilyan replied. Temporary consolidation prevents a custody lapse. The retirement decree bore Aldous's deliberate seal. Ilyan had presented the annex as routine succession paperwork. Aldous had allowed it to pass without reading the full transfer of power or asking what questioned weapons and death records Beatrice held. She folded the annex. You retired me before asking what he needed my absence to hide. That suggests concealment where there may be orderly succession, Ilyan said. Last winter, I questioned 3 training deaths in which controlled strikes carried farther than their registered balance allowed. My retirement removes me from those blades, their locker, and the office reviewing the deaths. That does not make the transfer corrupt. No. It makes the transfer worth reading before a king seals it. Aldous looked from the annex to the silver command circle. Under Varenhold's old wolf law of restraint, no commander could swear authority beside a weapon whose killing balance differed from its registered measure. Power had to declare its true weight before it commanded another blade. A ceremonial counterweight was lawful only when its position had been registered and physically locked near the guard. Ilyan stepped onto the crescent. The command seal touched the stone. A blade turned in its sheath. Then another. Metal scraped through Blackmoon Armory until every edge faced away from the throne. The blades nearest certified instructors presented their harmless spines the armory's request for non-lethal examination, not allegiance. The oath blades did not answer cruelty, injury, or retirement. They answered only when a sealed command transfer met a weapon whose present balance no longer matched the measure under which it had been registered. 3 measured vibrations passed through the racks. Beatrice looked at Ilyan's command sword. Its sheath hung lower beneath the guard than its registered profile allowed. The warning was older than Beatrice. She taught its rhythm because the oath blades had used 3 beats for generations when a weapon no longer matched its sworn measure. The sword was fitted for ceremonial carry, Ilyan said. I was told the weight had been fixed and entered into the command registry. It was never intended to move during combat. Then the registry should show the fixed alteration, and the sword should not be answering a movable balance warning. A registration failure may belong to the armorer. It may. That is why the sword must be opened. If the locking pin failed or had never been set, the weight could remain near the hand during a stationary test, then slide forward during a full cutting arc and add force to the final turn. The mechanism could explain the kind of excessive follow-through Beatrice had recorded in 3 winter deaths. It did not establish that this sword, this weight, or this bearer had caused any of them. Beatrice pressed 2 fingers into the crescent inspection notch beneath the nearest pommel. 3-beat balance warning, she said. Under the old wolf law of restraint, I call a balance challenge. Her gaze fixed on Ilyan. Release the hilt. Surrender the weapon for opening. His hand moved toward the sword, whether from instinct, alarm, an attempt to steady it, or an effort to surrender it. She could not tell. Do not draw, Aldous said. Before Ilyan's fingers closed, the Wolf King's coronation blade tore free of the throne rack. It struck the stone between Ilyan and Aldous. The silver edge divided Ilyan's shadow from the throne. Seal every armory gate, Aldous ordered. The disputed sword goes under divided custody. The death review records leave the Chancellor's sole control until examination is complete. Beatrice's retirement decree remained sealed in her hand. The command chair had been transferred on paper. Until the hidden weight was opened and measured, the oath blades would not complete Ilyan Crest's command oath. Beatrice ordered the disputed sword chained flat before anyone attempted to remove it from the command circle. If the counterweight is still free, carrying the blade upright may shift it before we record its present position. Ilyan kept both hands visible. You are assuming movement before the casing has been opened. I am preventing movement before anyone can claim it happened afterward. Aldous gave the order. 2 guards laid the command sword across a padded iron board and secured the sheath at 3 points. The oath blades remained turned from the throne, but their vibration had stopped. The balance challenge was active. They would offer no further judgment. Under the old wolf law of restraint, the weapon passed into divided custody. Aldous named Master Smith Corran Vale for Blackmoon Armory and Examiner Maura Fenn for independent death review. Ilyan chose Deputy Chancellor Perrin Holt as his representative. Beatrice remained the certified inspector who had invoked the challenge. She could compare measurements and records, explain technical consequences, and object to procedure. She could not dismantle the sword. Her retirement decree remained folded inside her coat. A clerk opened the command registry to Ilyan's ceremonial sword. Its length, steel weight, grip wrapping, and original center of balance were recorded. A later line authorized a ceremonial adjustment 2 years earlier. The field for the counterweight's fixed position was blank. So was the completing armorer's mark. Authorization alone did not change a command sword's sworn measure. Both entries were required before an altered balance became lawful inside an oath circle. I was told the adjustment had been completed and entered, Ilyan said. By whom? Maura asked. The Chancellor's fitting clerk handled the appointment. That is an office, not a person, Beatrice said. Ilyan met her eyes. The clerk's name will be provided. I will not invent one to satisfy the speed of this room. Aldous stood across the table. Did you ever inspect this sword? No. Command weapons passed through the Chancellor's armory unless a fault was reported. And the 3 winter blades? I received 3 death files describing strikes that traveled beyond their registered finish. After the 3rd death, I quarantined all 3 blades and ordered moving, balance examinations. Fatality evidence required a smith, an independent examiner, and a custody witness before it could be opened. The joint examination had been scheduled when Aldous' decree removed Beatrice from the armory. The tests had not begun before my access was revoked, she said. His gaze dropped to the shoulder the court had used against her. "I should have asked before I signed. You should have read before you signed." He accepted the correction. Corran marked every screw and seam with white chalk. Mora read the marks into the record. Perrin verified that the 3 securing chains, chalked seams, and custody marks had remained intact since the panel received the sword. Only then did Corran remove the guard plate. A narrow iron channel ran beneath it. The counterweight rested close to the hilt, where a stationary test would find nothing alarming. The locking pin was absent. Its housing showed fine tool scoring along one edge. The marks could have come from fitting work, later removal, or attempted repair. They could not establish whether a pin had ever been properly seated, when it disappeared, or who had handled it. "That fitting was supposed to be fixed," Ilyan said. "Supposed to be is not a measurement," Mora replied. "The pin might never have been installed, might have fallen free, might have broken during use or maintenance, or might have been deliberately removed." The record favored none of those possibilities. Corran mounted the open sword in a restraint frame. During a slow practice movement, the weight stayed near the hand. During a full cutting arc, it slid through the channel and struck the forward stop. The blade pulled hard into the final turn. The restraint cord snapped taut, and the measurement needle settled beyond the registered finishing range. "That much added force would not change the opening strike," Beatrice said. "It would change where the blade stopped. A swordsman could believe he had checked his follow-through and still be carried beyond it," Corran said. Perrin folded his arms. "A failed pin explains that without proving deliberate alteration." "Yes," Beatrice said. "Record both." Mora entered that the weapon could create excessive follow-through while passing a stationary test and currently lacked a functioning restraint. The examination did not establish who caused the condition, when it began, whether Ilyan knew, whether the sword had entered combat, or whether the same mechanism caused any winter death. The 3 death files were opened under separate seals. Each recorded a finishing distance greater than its blade's registered balance should have produced. The mechanism produced the kind of extended finish Beatrice had documented. The pattern was similar. Similarity was not identity. That resemblance justified opening the quarantined blades. It did not establish a common mechanism, maker, or order. The files named 3 different blades, 2 different holes, and no common armorer on their face. Aldous took the continuity annex from the royal clerk. "Inspection and death review will not remain under one office while this challenge stands. I suspend the annex pending custody review." Ilyan's expression stayed controlled. "My appointment remains on paper. Your command oath remains incomplete, and Lady Holling remains retired." Aldous placed routine armory safety under Corran until the challenge ended. Corran could secure weapons and halt training. He could not assume the command chair, alter inspection findings, or control death review. Beatrice did not thank Aldous for preserving a boundary he should never have blurred. Mora ordered the winter evidence inventory opened, so the 3 quarantined blades could be examined under the same divided procedure. The first 2 occupied their numbered slots. The 3rd slot was empty. A removal receipt lay where the blade should have been. It listed the correct evidence number and described a temporary fitting review. The receiving custodian line was blank. The receipt bore the Sword Chancellor's office seal. No personal signature appeared beneath it. Mora sealed the vacant evidence slot and removal receipt before anyone could turn an office seal into Ilyan Crest's personal signature. "The seal proves the Chancellor's office handled the transfer," she said. "It does not tell us who requested it, who pressed the wax, or whether the removal was properly authorized." Perrin Holt inclined his head. "Enter that before anyone decides an office is the same thing as a man. I already have." The custody register listed 7 people authorized to use the Sword Chancellor's office seal. Ilyan, Perrin, the fitting clerk, 2 senior armorers, a records deputy, and the night custodian. Each could press it only for approved work. Evidence removal also required the responsible seal user, a named receiving custodian, a stated purpose and destination, Beatrice's quarantine countersign, and a return date. On the missing blade's receipt, the receiving custodian and return date fields were blank. Beatrice's countersign was absent. The blade had left custody 11 days after she quarantined it, and 2 days before Aldous signed her retirement decree. It left while my inspection authority was still active, Beatrice said. Ilyan stood across the table, his ceremonial command sword still chained flat behind him. Then you should have received notice. I should have. That failure may belong to the evidence clerk. It may. But the blade left a quarantine I signed without my required countersign. Aldous stepped toward the records. Mora raised one hand. You may request questions through the panel, Your Majesty. You may not conduct the witness examination yourself. His expression tightened. But he stopped. Ask who took responsibility for the seal that day. The checkout column showed that the office seal had left the Chancellor's cabinet for 37 minutes during the second afternoon bell. The authorized user field was blank. The purpose field read temporary fitting review. The destination field carried only an abbreviated workshop code. Ilyan remained acting commander on paper, though his command oath was incomplete. Corran's temporary safety custody allowed him to secure weapons and halt training. Beatrice remained retired. Neither Ilyan's appointment nor Corran's limited custody could become full oath-bound command, while the balance challenge remained open. Independent death review authority remained with Mora. Mora turned to Ilyan. You said a fitting clerk handled your ceremonial adjustment. Name him. Ilyas Wren. Is he still employed? At the Eastern Fitting Rooms. Then send for him before another record disappears. Ilyan said. The line could have been concern or accusation. Beatrice did not decide which. While a neutral guard went for Elias, Corran prepared the first remaining winter blade. Beatrice's injured shoulder had stiffened. Aldous moved a chair toward the inspection line. She looked at it, then at him. I can ask for it when I need it. I know. He left it nearby. Corran opened the first blade beneath divided witness. Its center of balance remained within registry tolerance, though the edge had been reground farther back than the permitted taper. There was no hidden channel and no movable weight. It would shorten cutting reach, not extend it, Corran said. Perrin exhaled. Then the pattern is already breaking. The 3 deaths may share no mechanical cause, Mora said. So it works against your theory, Perrin told Beatrice. It works against one theory. Evidence does not insult me when it refuses to agree. Aldous looked at her longer than the examination required. She returned her attention to the blade. The second weapon was opened with clean tools, new chalk marks, and a fresh custody sheet. Its balance matched while level. Under force, however, the grip shifted around the tang. A cracked internal collar allowed the blade to rotate during the finishing movement. Corran repeated the test. The point dragged sideways near the end of the arc. It could extend a strike through loss of alignment, he said. It does not add forward weight. Could age cause it? Mora asked. Yes. So could poor repair or an impact after registration. Perrin looked toward Beatrice. A different fault in a different weapon. Yes. Then neither blade ties the deaths to the Chancellor's sword. Neither blade establishes that connection, she said. The missing third blade remains unexamined. Mora entered the findings. One blade contradicted the movable weight theory. The other showed a separate dynamic defect. Neither established a common maker, mechanism, or order. The oath blades remained motionless. Their procedural role had ended when the challenge opened. Elias Wren arrived under neutral escort before dusk, ink beneath his nails and a fitting key at his belt. Mora warned him that his answers concerned registry procedure, not guilt. Did you supervise the fitting of Chancellor Crest's command sword? I scheduled it. Did you tell him the counterweight had been fixed and registered? Elias glanced at Ilyan. Then, at the incomplete page, I told him the fitting order was complete. That was not the question. He swallowed. I believe the armorer had fixed the weight. I sent the registry page forward for completion. Ilyan's voice remained level. You told me nothing further was required. I told you the fitting order had cleared my desk. That is not the same answer. No, Chancellor. Elias could not say who failed to complete the registry. The completion routing field named only an abbreviated workshop code. No individual armorer had been entered. Mora compared it with the missing blade's receipt. The workshop code in Elias's completion routing field matched the code in the receipt's destination field. Both records described the work as temporary fitting review. She opened the workshop index. The listed fitting room had officially closed 6 weeks before the evidence blade was removed. Corrin frowned. No ordinary fitting order should have gone there. The gate ledger recorded one sealed blade case delivered under that workshop code after nightfall. The entry carried no evidence number. It did not identify what the case contained. Mora ordered the closed workshop left, untouched, until its closure decree, key register, and gate entry could be examined together. No one opens that door because a code looks suspicious, she said. We establish whether the room was truly closed and who could enter it. Aldous placed guards at both corridors, but remained outside the witness table. Beatrice stood beside the records, her retired inspector's badge returned only for identification. The closure decree showed that the fitting room had ceased ordinary work 6 weeks before the missing blade's transfer. Its tools were inventoried, unfinished fittings rerouted, and the room sealed for winter repairs. Closed for work, Corrin said. Not condemned. Mora looked at Elias. Could paperwork still carry the old code? Yes. Seasonal routing forms were copied forward. If no clerk replaced the workshop field, the old code could survive closure. Ilyan folded his hands behind his back. Administrative reuse is careless. It is not concealment. No, Beatrice said. A closed code proves only that someone failed to explain where the work actually went. The key register listed 3 workshop keys. One had been melted after closure. Corrin's master key remained sealed in his cabinet. The third belonged to the senior duty ring and could be checked out by Corrin, either senior armorer or the Royal Armory officer serving night duty. The emergency checkout line was blank. Its hook was empty. A broken wax custody tag hung beneath it. The blank line proves no lawful checkout was recorded, Mora said. It does not prove who removed the key or when. When was the cabinet last counted? Beatrice asked. The morning after closure, Corrin replied. That is 6 weeks without a verified key count. Mora entered. Before anyone approached the door, the panel examined its physical closure. The decree required a black wax cord across the outer locking plate. The cord remained, but the wax had been cut once and pressed back beneath a second closure impression. The replacement matched a valid armory closure matrix but carried no personal credential. A lawful reopening required a repair register entry naming the date, purpose, and responsible officer. No such entry appeared. Tommen Reed was brought under neutral escort. Mora placed the disputed gate entry beside 3 undisputed pages in his hand. The writing is mine, Tommen said. An archivist found the same hooked final stroke, number spacing, and gate abbreviation. The entry was consistent with Tommen's hand. What arrived? Mora asked. A long case under grey canvas, sealed at both ends. Did you inspect it? No. The movement mark allowed passage without opening. Could you see an evidence number? No. Who brought it? A 2-horse armory cart. The driver wore a winter hood. Perrin leaned forward. Did Chancellor Crest accompany it? No. Did I? No. Mora stopped him. The witness has identified who he did not see. That is not proof of who arranged the delivery. The cart belonged to Blackmoon Armory. Its driver field carried a night duty credential identifying the office, not the individual. 3 officers were eligible to carry it during that bell. Tommen could not identify which one. He had recorded a sealed case moved under the closed workshop code, not its contents. Aldous submitted his question through Mora. Was any emergency fitting exception approved for that room? The repair register contained none. Elias rubbed ink from his thumb. My fitting order may have routed there automatically. That does not mean the physical sword followed the paper. And the case? Mora asked. Could have held another weapon. Beatrice nodded. The gate entry carries no evidence number. We cannot call it the missing blade. Mora authorized a divided search. Corrin held the opening tool. Perrin witnessed for Ilyan. Beatrice could observe and compare evidence numbers but could not direct the search. Aldous remained beyond the threshold until the first inventory was complete. Perrin verified the closure cord, replacement wax, keyway scratches, and absent reopening notation. Corrin removed the protective lock cover. The emergency key had been pushed deep into the outer keyway and remained seated halfway through the turn, hidden from the corridor. Inside, dust covered the benches. No forge showed recent use. The closure inventory accounted for all tools except one narrow fitting vise listed as present when the room was sealed. No rerouting or destruction record explained its absence. Mora entered the missing vise without linking it to the blade. At the rear wall stood a long iron case. She matched its stamped number to Beatrice's quarantine inventory and the removal receipt. One end still carried the evidence seal, recorded when the blade entered custody. The opposite original seal had been cut away and replaced by a later Royal Armory custody impression. The later seal was valid in form, belonged to a shared authorization tier, and carried no personal credential or matching custody entry. The surviving seal shows one end remained closed, Mora said. The replacement shows the other was opened and resealed after quarantine. It does not show where. Ilyan looked at Beatrice. You insisted the custody trail be completed. If the blade is not inside, will you record that it led only to an empty room? I will record where the evidence ends. You should be more concerned with why its custody does not. The case was opened under witnessed procedure. The inner restraints were empty. Sharp pressure impressions and a blade-shaped gap in the dust showed that a sword had occupied the case after quarantine. They did not prove it remained inside during the gate delivery. Inside the lid hung a custody tag bearing the shared Royal Armory authorization mark. Corrin stared at it. That mark identifies an authority tier, not the hand that used it. I could press it. So could either senior armorer or the King's Armory officer. Beatrice looked at the empty restraints. The missing blade's numbered case had reached the closed workshop. The record still did not prove whether the blade had arrived inside it or who had opened the case afterward. Mora suspended Corrin Vale from handling the historical custody records the moment his authorization tier appeared inside the case. You are not accused, she said. But you cannot authenticate a record that may concern your own past access. Corrin removed his panel gloves and set them beside the empty case. Do not clear me because I have spent this inquiry standing on your side of the table. A neutral guildsmith from the outer arsenal replaced him for seal comparison. Corrin remained available as a witness and retained temporary safety custody over active weapons, but he could not handle the old registers, the emergency key, or the shared authorization matrices. Beatrice remained retired. Her badge identified the quarantine inventory she had created. It gave her no command over the search. The shared Royal Armory register named 4 people who could lawfully use the authorization tier found inside the case. Corrin, Senior Armorer Dane Orrell, Senior Armorer Vessa Thorne, and the King's Knight Armory officer, Garin Pike. Perrin Holt looked at Mora. 4 authorized hands do not make 4 suspects. No, she said. They define the access group, nothing more. The neutral smith compared the replacement wax on the workshop door with the custody impression on the opened end of the case. Both were valid, but they came from different matrices. The door had been resealed, with the armory closure matrix kept in the repair office. The case had been resealed with the weapon custody matrix stored in the Royal Armory vault. One hand could have reached both, Ilyan said. If that person held 2 duties, or 2 different people acted at different times, Beatrice replied. Mora entered both possibilities. The emergency key belonged to the senior duty ring. The night duty credential belonged to the officer serving the yard, not to the key itself. Nothing yet showed that the person who moved the cart had also opened the workshop. Aldous submitted a request through Mora's clerk, release the Royal Knight roster and Garin Pike's duty records to the panel. Perrin turned toward him. Those records include crown, weapon movement. Redact unrelated routes, Aldous said. Do not withhold the bell, credential, or officer assignment. Ilyan's gaze sharpened. You are exposing the Crown's own custody failures before the Council has ruled. I closed one inquiry because speed was convenient, Aldous said. I will not close another because the answer may embarrass my house. Beatrice heard responsibility in the words. She did not mistake it for repair. The decision exposed one of Aldous' own officers to the same inquiry he had allowed to consume Beatrice's authority. It did not return hers. Mora opened the repair access register. Danoril had a standing winter order to inspect roof braces and retrieve loose tools from closed rooms. Vessa Thorn had no recorded assignment at the workshop. Garin Pike could authorize night movement of sealed weapons, but had no standing power to reopen a closed fitting room. Dane's order could explain a lawful reason to request entry. It did not explain the blank key checkout, the replacement door seal, the missing countersign, or the empty case. The narrow-fitting vise remained absent. Its closure inventory number appeared in no destruction book or rerouting list. Mora kept it as a separate missing tool. Could that vise hold a training blade? She asked the neutral smith. It could hold a guard or tang during fitting. It could not tell us which weapon entered it. No metal filings or residue were collected yet. Dust disturbance around the vacant outline was too broad to date, and the room had not been kept clean enough for a footprint finding. Tom and Reed returned to answer questions about the cart. Could you tell whether the case was heavy? Mora asked. Only that the rear wheel settled when the cart stopped. Could canvas, iron, or loose tools have caused that? Yes. So you cannot say a sword was inside? No. The armory movement ledger listed the cart, the shared night duty credential, and one long sealed case. It did not name a driver. The stable kept a separate load book, because winter axle limits determined which bridge a cart could cross. At dispatch, the cart had been weighed after the driver stepped down. The load clerk also entered the sealed case as a separate item, because weapon cases were charged against the rear axle. Mora ordered the case found in the workshop weighed in its present empty condition. The dispatch entry exceeded that weight by 7 pounds and 6 ounces. Beatrice requested the quarantine inventory. The missing training blade, sheath, and retaining straps had been recorded together at 7 pounds and 6 ounces. Perrin's face hardened. That proves the case left the yard with an object of the same weight. It does not prove identity. Correct, Mora said. Nor does it prove the object remained inside when Tommen saw the cart. Ilyan looked at Beatrice. But this is the point where you will ask them to treat coincidence as a sword. No, this is the point where I ask why every required name disappears, while every required weight remains. Aldous' hand closed once at his side. Mora turned to him before he could speak. Questions through the panel. He released his hand. Ask whether the cart's return record narrows where the load was removed. The stable book showed the cart returned before dawn, without the iron case. Its weight was consistent with the case, and its recorded contents having been unloaded somewhere along the authorized workshop route. It did not identify where the case had been opened, or whether the contents had traveled farther by another hand. But the load record established one fact: the empty restraints could not. When the numbered case left the armory yard, it carried something weighing exactly as much as the missing blade, its sheath, and its straps. Mora ordered the stable book, cart bed inventory, and every movement record from the authorized workshop route, sealed before the weight finding was read beyond the panel. The case left the yard carrying an object that matched the missing blade's recorded weight, she said. That does not tell us where the object left the case. Perrin Holt nodded. or whether the recorded weight belonged to that blade at all. Correct. The cart's route slip named only the closed fitting workshop. It listed no lawful intermediate stop. The return page recorded the empty iron case as remaining off-cart, but a narrow equipment outline had been chalked into the outbound load sketch beside it. Corrin recognized the dimensions. The missing fitting vise. Mora kept him beyond the records table. Recognition only. The neutral smith will compare the measurements. The vice's closure inventory matched the chalk outline within half an inch. A retaining chain mark on the cart bed also matched the vice's hooked base. The findings supported that the missing tool had traveled with the numbered case. It did not establish what work had been performed. Where could that vise be used without a forge? Mora asked. Any room with a stone anchor, Beatrice said. It holds guards, tangs, and internal channels. Heat is not required to remove a locking pin. Ilyan's attention settled on her. You are moving from a missing tool to a deliberate alteration. No, I am explaining what the tool can do. The record still has to show where it went. The armory equipment ledger provided the next step. On the night after the case reached the workshop, the vice number appeared under a temporary use code assigned to the old tournament preparation chamber beneath the western gallery. The entry carried no username. Unlike the fitting workshop, the chamber had never been formally closed. It remained available for storing barriers, ceremonial targets, and damaged tournament furniture. Access required a Royal Armory authorization mark, but no separate workshop key. Mora turned to Aldous. Your Majesty, the chamber is Crown property. Do you authorize a divided search? I do. You will remain outside until the first inventory is complete. Aldous accepted the restriction without argument. Beatrice noticed because once, years ago, he would have called obedience beneath him. The chamber opened under a neutral smith's tool. Dust lay thick across the targets, but one stone anchor showed a clean crescent where a vise had been bolted and later removed. Metal filings remained inside the floor groove. The neutral smith collected them before Corrin was allowed to comment. They are from more than one alloy, the smith said. Guard steel, locking, pin iron, and a softer counterweight metal. Perrin folded his arms. That chamber prepared hundreds of weapons before it became storage. Yes, Mora said. The filings cannot yet be dated or tied to the missing blade. Behind a collapsed target rack, the panel found a fitted wooden drawer. It held no weapon. Inside were 12 narrow work cards bearing command sword and tournament blade serials from the previous 3 years. Elias Wren studied the routing marks. These are fitting worksheets. They should have been copied into the main registry and destroyed after completion. Were they? Mora asked. Not if they were left here. 9 cards described lawful fixed ceremonial weights. 2 recorded ordinary grip repairs. The 12th listed the missing winter blade. Its instruction read, Retain mobile channel for demonstration balance. Registry entry deferred. Beatrice read it twice. That blade was quarantined after the 3rd death, she said. This card predates the death by 6 weeks. Perrin answered carefully. It proves someone intended the channel to remain movable during a demonstration. It does not prove the blade stayed in that condition until the fatal training session. Record that, Beatrice said. Maura did. The card bore the Sword Chancellor's office authorization tier, not Ilyan's personal signature. Its lower corner carried a promotion review number. The same number appeared in the personnel ledger beside the young officer who had survived the fatal bout and been advanced into an empty command place 3 days later. A second card carried another promotion review number tied to an earlier tournament death. The pattern was no longer only mechanical. Someone had routed altered balance work through the same administrative path used to review the promotions that followed the deaths. Ilyan's voice stayed level. The Chancellor's office reviews promotions because vacancies must be filled. Sequence is not proof that the vacancy was created for the promotion. No, Mora said, but it requires every linked file preserved. Aldous submitted his question through her clerk. How many of the 12 work cards connect to deaths? 2 by visible review number, Mora replied. The missing winter blade makes a possible third. The other cards require comparison. Beatrice's shoulder had begun to burn beneath her coat. She pressed her right hand against the table edge until the tremor passed. Aldous did not move the chair this time. He asked, "Was the blade from her ceremonial injury ever routed through this chamber?" Mora looked to Beatrice before opening a record tied to her body. "Proceed," Beatrice said. Her injury report named the ceremonial blade used during the royal exhibition 3 winters earlier. The public registry described its balance as fixed and ordinary. One work card in the drawer carried the same serial. Its instructions stated that the internal weight was to remain mobile through the exhibition's first full. Aldous went still. "I used that shoulder as evidence that command had passed her by." Beatrice met his eyes. "You used what happened to me before asking how it happened." He did not look away. Mora turned the card over. The routing authorization on the front belonged to the shared office tier. The instruction on the back carried a personal countersign. If authenticated, it would prove who authorized the delayed locking, not why the order was given, or whether injury was intended. The name beneath it was Sword Chancellor Ilyan Crest. Mora ordered the work card sealed apart from the others before anyone treated a countersign as proof of intent. "The mark may identify the authorizing officer," she said. "It does not tell us why the instruction was issued, who carried it out, or whether injury was intended." Ilyan Crest did not ask for the card back. "The countersign is mine," he said. Perrin Holt turned sharply. "You are entitled to authentication before admission. I know my own hand." Mora compared the mark with 3 undisputed promotion orders and 2 weapon routing directives signed by Ilyan during the same winter. The pressure break beneath the second letter, the shortened final stroke, and the personal seal notch matched. She entered the finding narrowly. Ilyan had personally authorized the ceremonial blade's weight to remain mobile through the exhibition's first full cutting pass. The instruction did not name Beatrice, order injury, or establish whether the blade had been locked before later use. Beatrice stood opposite him. Why would any ceremonial sword need a mobile weight during a full strike? To demonstrate the difference between decorative balance and combat balance, Ilyan replied. The exhibition was meant to show how quickly a trained fighter could adjust. Was the fighter told? The demonstration master controlled the sequence. That was not my question. His mouth tightened. No. The movement was not disclosed to the participating swordsman. Aldous submitted his question through Mora. Was Beatrice listed as the first receiving fighter? The exhibition schedule placed her in the opening exchange. The blade had entered from the eastern side, passed through one controlled arc, and struck her shoulder after carrying beyond the registered stopping point. The schedule did not prove that Ilyan knew which exchange would fail. It did prove that he authorized an undisclosed moving balance in a live ceremonial bout. You called it an adjustment test, Beatrice said. You placed the test inside another person's body. I expected the safety lock to engage before contact. Then where is the order requiring someone to engage it? Elias searched the routing packet. No locking assignment appeared. No named armorer, safety officer, or pre-bout inspection mark had been entered. Ilyan looked toward the records. The omission may have occurred after my instruction left the office. It may, Mora said. But the instruction created a dangerous condition without naming the person responsible for ending it. Aldous' voice came through the clerk again. Ask whether the same office reviewed Beatrice's fitness after the injury. The answer sat in the retirement packet. Ilyan's office had provided the council memorandum describing her shoulder as evidence that Blackmoon Armory needed younger command. The memorandum did not mention the undisclosed moving weight, authorized under his personal countersign. Beatrice unfolded her retirement decree. You helped create the condition that injured me. Then you presented the injury as proof that I should be removed. I authorized a demonstration procedure, Ilyan said. I did not authorize your retirement alone. The king signed it. Beatrice looked at Aldous. Yes, he did. The words left no place for Aldous to hide behind the countersign. Mora suspended Ilyan from weapon routing promotion review, fitting authorization, and access to historical death files. He remained Sword Chancellor until a formal tribunal determined whether his conduct met the standard for removal. His appointment as acting commander remained on paper, but the incomplete oath barred him from exercising Blackmoon Armory's oath-bound authority. Aldous then surrendered his right to appoint Ilyan's replacement during the inquiry. Perrin stared at him. The Wolf King cannot abandon command appointment because the process has become uncomfortable. I am not abandoning it. I am removing the advantage my unread annex gave me over the evidence. A 3-member interim board would manage ordinary instruction and safety. It could not alter the death findings, dispose of questioned weapons, or appoint a permanent commander. Aldous turned toward Beatrice. Your retirement should be suspended while the decree is reviewed. No. The answer crossed the armory before he could soften his expression. You were removed on a record that concealed the cause of your injury, and returning me because the concealment has become inconvenient would still make my office depend on your discomfort. I am trying to restore what I took. You cannot restore command before you restore the institution that made it disposable. The oath blades remained motionless in their racks. No silver edge turned toward her. No old law relieved either of them from choosing what came next. Beatrice removed the retired inspector's badge from her coat and placed it beside the sealed work card. I will remain available as a witness and as the author of the quarantine records. I will not serve as acting commander, interim inspector, or royal symbol of correction. Aldous's hand moved half an inch toward her, then stopped. Where will you go? To the Eastern School residence until my testimony is complete. After that, somewhere your council cannot retire me twice. The injured shoulder made fastening her cloak slow. She did not allow anyone to help. At the armory doors, Aldous spoke once more. Beatrice. She paused without turning. I loved the strength that trained me, he said. I failed the woman carrying its cost. Her fingers tightened on the cloak clasp. Then stop asking love to speak before the record does. She left Blackmoon Armory under her own name and without a command chair. Behind her, the royal training bells began their evening call. No instructor answered them. The interim board had opened the first attendance roll and found that every senior swordsman trained by Beatrice Holling had submitted the same written refusal. They would not teach beneath a death review system still permitted to judge its own blades. The refusal emptied Blackmoon Armory more completely than any royal order could have done. By sunrise, every senior instructor trained by Beatrice had surrendered a teaching key. None abandoned guard duty. Their letters shared one conclusion. They would protect Varenhold, but they would not certify a school allowed to inspect its own weapons and judge its own dead. Ilyan Crest called it coordinated coercion. The letters used the same legal distinction. He told the emergency council. Lady Holling left the armory, and within an hour her former students disabled royal instruction without breaking military service. Beatrice was not present. Mora Fenn placed the letters on the table. A shared principle is not proof of a shared command. No messenger, draft, or witness links these refusals to Beatrice. Ilyan's gaze moved to Aldous. Then summon her and ask. No, Aldous said. You will not turn her into the accused because the institution finally noticed what it was asked to tolerate. He closed the school to live blade instruction until an independent review certified every training weapon. Guard drills continued with wooden forms. Cadets kept rank and pay. No instructor was punished for refusing a false safety record. The decision cost him before noon. 3 council houses withdrew support from his winter levy, arguing that a Wolf King who suspended his own sword school had admitted weakness. Aldous entered their objections into the public docket. Then he entered his own failure. He read the retirement decree aloud, followed by the continuity annex he had allowed beneath his seal. I removed Beatrice Holling while 3 quarantined death exhibits awaited joint examination, he said. I transferred powers I had not read. Whatever the tribunal decides about Chancellor Crest, those choices were mine. Ilyan's voice remained level. The two blades already examined do not share one mechanism. My ceremonial fitting may reflect failed workmanship. The missing blade has not been found. All true, Mora said. Aldous nodded. Enter it beside my statement. He suspended the continuity annex permanently and submitted a separation charter barring any command school from controlling weapons inspection or death review. The first independent reviewer would be chosen by military families and licensed smiths, not by the throne. He also surrendered the Wolf King's sole power to appoint Blackmoon Armory's next permanent commander. Appointment would require approval from the independent reviewer and a majority of certified instructors. Perrin Holt stared at the charter. You are cutting royal authority because one king neglected to use it. I am limiting the next king because this one proved neglect was enough. Beatrice was not restored. Her retirement remained under review, and her former chair stayed unfilled. Aldous sent the charter to the Eastern School residents without a private letter. Beatrice returned it with 6 amendments. Questioned weapons had to enter divided custody before transfer. Fatality families had to receive every non-restricted finding. No administrator involved in a promotion following a death could review that death. Instructors could halt dangerous exercises without surrendering rank. Dynamic balance testing would follow every internal fitting. No injured officer could be retired on a fitness memorandum written by an office whose conduct contributed to the injury under review. Aldous accepted all 6. Only after the council entered them did he go to the Eastern residence. Beatrice met him in the narrow practice court. A wooden sword rested against the wall beyond her reach. You used every amendment, she said. They were better than mine. That has not troubled kings before. It should have troubled me. He stopped several paces away. No mantle. No guards. No request that she return. The families of the 3 dead trainees will receive restored pay and counsel while the findings are reopened, he said. Not compensation for a cause we have not proved. Support for the years my unfinished reviews left them carrying alone. That is necessary. Ilyan remains entitled to answer the evidence. So is every clerk whose blank field now looks like intent. I know. Beatrice studied him. You are learning to say that without asking me to reward you. His face tightened, but he did not defend himself. I am learning that repair has to remain right even if you never come back. The answer reached the part of her that remembered the young prince who once repeated a restraint step until his hands bled. She did not let memory cheapen the present. A bell sounded from the council tower. Mora's summons arrived moments later. Ilyan had challenged the finding that an undisclosed mobile weight made his exhibition order inherently unsafe. He argued that advanced ceremonial fighters were trained to adapt to changing balance and that Beatrice's injury could not be attributed to the mechanism without a controlled demonstration. He wants another live test, Aldous said. He wants uncertainty performed, where the court can watch it. You do not have to answer, no, but someone has to keep him from choosing the conditions. At the hearing, Mora refused sharpened weapons, uncontrolled contact, and any test designed to reproduce injury. A blunted command blade could be restored to the movable condition documented at opening. Its path would be measured inside a restraint circle. Ilyan offered to wield it himself. To prove I do not fear the mechanism I authorized, he said. Perrin objected that his participation could prejudice the tribunal. Ilyan did not withdraw. The receiving fighter had to be a certified master familiar with the original exhibition sequence. Every face turned toward Beatrice. Aldous rose. Her retirement bars royal compulsion. Beatrice stepped past him. I will enter by my own consent. Mora looked at her injured shoulder. You may withdraw at any point. I will not attack, Beatrice said. Ilyan's expression changed by less than a breath. Then there is no duel. There is the only test you have not been able to blame on an opponent. She placed her right hand on the blunted practice hilt. Let your blade show the court how far it travels when no one strikes it first. Mora sealed the restraint circle before the hearing gallery was opened. The disputed command sword had been reassembled with a blunted edge, its guard plate transparent beneath a fitted inspection cover. The locking pin remained absent. A stripe of white mineral dust marked the counterweight starting position near the hilt. Ilyan would perform the ceremonial sequence exactly as recorded 3 winters earlier. Beatrice would stand on the original receiving mark, with a fixed balance practice sword. She could defend or withdraw, but she had already refused to strike. Mora looked at her injured shoulder. "Consent does not remove my authority to stop this test." "No," Beatrice said. "But concern does not give anyone authority to change the question." Aldous remained outside the circle. "If the blade crosses the safety line, I will end it." Beatrice turned toward him. "Mora will end it. You will not turn my choice into another order made for my protection." His mouth tightened once. "Understood." Ilyan tested the command sword without raising it. "The mechanism has now been disclosed to me. Any result will differ from the original exhibition." "That protects you from surprise," Beatrice said. "It does not protect your claim that an undisclosed moving balance was safe." Perrin requested the distinction entered. Mora did so. The first pass was performed at practice speed. The counterweight stayed near the hand. Ilyan stopped within the registered line. The second pass reached half the exhibition force. The white stripe shifted less than an inch, and the sword finished near the outer tolerance mark. Ilyan lowered the blade. A trained fighter can feel the change before it becomes dangerous. "Then make the full pass," Beatrice said. Aldous looked toward Mora, not Beatrice. He had finally learned which woman controlled the test. Mora checked the restraint cords and the padded stopping post beyond Beatrice's right side. "One full ceremonial arc. Lady Holling will not engage your blade. If you feel the balance move, you may arrest the strike. Do not redirect toward her." Ilyan took his place. Beatrice stood where the old exhibition diagram placed her, her practice sword held low. The scar beneath her coat seemed to remember the floor before the rest of her body did. She shifted her left foot half a width to protect the shoulder, then returned it to the marked position. Perrin noticed. "You are not required to reproduce the stance exactly." "I am not reproducing the injury," she said. "I am removing the excuse that the floor caused it." The bell sounded. Ilyan began the cutting arc. The command sword moved cleanly through its opening path. Near the final third, the white stripe vanished beneath the inspection cover. The counterweight shot forward and struck the end of its channel. Ilyan tried to stop. His wrist turned. His shoulder pulled back. The blade continued. Beatrice did not attack. She did not meet force with force. She moved one step outside the line and let the weapon declare its own finish. The blunted edge crossed the registered stopping mark, past the place where her shoulder had been 3 winters earlier, and struck the padded post behind her. The restraint cords snapped tight. The guard housing split along an old fitting seam. A brass counterweight drove halfway through the opening and stopped in public view. No oath blade moved. The finding belonged to the frame, the measurements, and the people who had watched the arc. Ilyan released the hilt when Mora ordered him to. "The blade was already under examination," he said. "Opening and reassembly may have changed its travel." The neutral smith checked the frame. The channel dimensions and forward stop matched the measurements taken before reassembly. The inspection cover did not drive the weight. "That does not establish what occurred 3 years ago," Perrin said. "No," Mora replied. "It establishes what this documented configuration does now." Beatrice pointed to the finishing gauge. "How far beyond the registered stop?" 14 inches, the smith said. Her injury file recorded contact 13 and 3/4 inches beyond the expected finish. The difference fell within the exhibition diagram's measurement tolerance. Mora entered the comparison and its limit. The test could explain the excessive reach that injured Beatrice. It did not prove that Ilyan intended contact, knew the safety lock would not engage, or ordered anyone to leave it unsecured. Ilyan looked at Beatrice. "You have proved the procedure was unsafe." I proved I did not fail to read your strike. The words landed harder than anger. For 3 years, the retirement memorandum had described her delayed response, reduced shoulder recovery, and inability to maintain command form. The public test showed a weapon continuing after its trained wielder attempted to stop it. Beatrice placed her practice sword on the floor. "I will not ask for my chair today," she said. "I ask that every officer who called those deaths hesitation stand beside the families when the blades are opened." Mora examined the exposed counterweight. Beneath the dust stripe, a shallow batch stamp had appeared where the weight struck the broken housing. Elias Wren brought the 12 work cards forward. The stamp matched the routing batch on all 12. Perrin objected immediately. "A shared batch does not prove every fitting remained mobile." "Agreed," Beatrice said. "Open them, measure them, record the ones that disagree." Aldous submitted the request through Mora rather than issuing a royal command. Mora ordered all 12 serials located and secured for public divided custody examination. 11 returned from active racks, ceremonial storage, and the tournament vault. The 12th serial belonged to the missing winter blade. A records clerk turned the batch ledger toward the panel. Someone had retired that serial after quarantine and issued the same steel under a replacement number. Its new location was written in the final column. The blade was hanging above the 3 dead trainees' memorial wall. Mora cleared the memorial gallery and placed the replacement numbered blade on a divided custody table beneath the names of the 3 dead trainees. "No one removes it from the wall until the old serial, the new serial, and the quarantine seal are read into the same record," she said. The memorial sword had been polished but never sharpened after display. Its replacement number matched the public inventory. Beneath the guard, Corrin's alternate smith found the filed remains of the original quarantine serial. Beatrice's countersign was still visible under the filing. "The blade was not destroyed," Mora said. "Its identity was altered and returned to royal display." Perrin Holt looked toward Ilyan. "That does not establish who ordered the renumbering." "No," Beatrice said. "Open the custody books before you open the sword." The renumbering request came from the Sword Chancellor's office. The office seal appeared beside a personal approval requiring evidence blades to be retired from active review when their defects could not be reproduced. The approval carried Ilyan Crest's countersign. Ilyan did not deny it. "The first examination had not reproduced the reported fault," he said. "I retired an uncertain weapon from training. You removed it before the moving balance examination I ordered," Beatrice replied. "Then your office returned it above the names of the people whose deaths it was meant to help explain." Mora entered both statements and ordered the guard opened. The missing blade contained a sliding channel beneath the hilt. Its locking pin had been cut flush with the housing. A thin brass work strip lay folded behind the counterweight. When the smith drew it free, 3 names appeared in fitted script notation: the dead trainee, his surviving opponent, and the officer promoted into the vacancy. The strip also carried Ilyan's personal review number. No oath blade moved. The finding came from steel, records, and the hand that had signed them. The remaining batch weapons were brought into the gallery. Each was opened under the same witnessed procedure. 7 contained lawful fixed ceremonial weights and complete registry marks. 5 contained mobile channels. When the 5 guard housings were separated, brass work strips slipped onto the white cloth beneath them. Each named a scheduled fighter, the opponent assigned to face that weapon, and the promotion review attached to the bout. 3 strips named the trainees whose deaths Beatrice had questioned. 1 named Beatrice's exhibition. The 5th named a swordsman who had survived after refusing the scheduled final pass. His promotion had been denied the following morning. Mora aligned the strips with the work cards, tournament schedules, death files, and promotion ledger. The pattern no longer depended on 1 sword or 1 missing pin. Ilyan had personally approved mobile balances for selected bouts, withheld the alterations from receiving fighters, controlled the promotion reviews that followed, and later authorized the removal of the blade Beatrice had quarantined. Ilyan stood beneath the memorial wall without lowering his head. I strengthened Varenhold by removing officers who could not adapt. You did not test adaptation, Beatrice said. You changed the weapon after one fighter had agreed to the rules. They were royal swordsmen. They were not materials for your appointments. Aldous did not ask Mora for permission to condemn him. He asked for the legal findings to be read. When they were complete, he removed Ilyan as Sword Chancellor, revoked every promotion tied to the altered balance reviews pending individual rehearing, and surrendered the criminal charges to an independent tribunal. Ilyan would answer for weapon tampering, concealed risk, custody interference, and abuse of office. The tribunal, not the Oathblades and not the king, would decide the sentence. Aldous then faced the families gathered beneath the gallery arches. I signed Beatrice Holling's retirement without reading the annex that placed her investigations under the office she was examining. I accepted her injury as proof. He ordered every death finding corrected, and every family paid the honors, pensions, and public record denied by the false reviews. Then he turned to Beatrice. Your retirement decree is void for concealed cause and corrupted review. That does not place you back in command. Beatrice held his gaze. No, it returns the choice to me. The new charter separated the Royal Sword School, weapons inspection, and death review into 3 independent offices. The commander would be elected by certified instructors and confirmed by an outside safety board. The Wolf King could no longer remove that commander through a private fitness memorandum. The instructors elected Beatrice unanimously. She accepted only after the charter named the school independent of the throne. Blackmoon Armory's command chair was carried from beneath the royal banners and placed inside the teaching circle. Beatrice sat in it once, not to claim rank, but to sign the first order requiring dynamic balance tests for every royal blade. Only then did the Oathblades rotate back toward the throne. Their edges resumed their lawful position because a complete command structure now stood beside declared weapons. They did not bow to Beatrice or absolve Aldous. Months later, Aldous came to the Eastern Practice Court without a crown. I have no decree today, he said. That improves your entrance. I do not expect forgiveness because the record is corrected. Good. He stopped within reach but did not touch her injured shoulder. I would like the right to know the woman I kept reducing to what she had done for me. Beatrice studied him for a long moment. You may begin by walking beside me to the evening class. And after that you may ask again. She offered her right hand. Aldous took it without pulling her closer. Behind them, young swordsmen entered the court carrying blunted blades, whose true weights had been written plainly into the registry. Beatrice led them through the first restraint form. This time, the king followed her count.